And we are live. Guys, welcome to the Bassin Magazine podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your host. Bassin Magazine, guys. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. With us tonight, I have, of course, Brad Yoel from Bassin Magazine and very special guest and bass fisherman extraordinaire, Michael Hall. And Michael is going to talk to us about, man, I'm so excited about this. I can barely talk. Michael is going to talk to us about Florida Bassin preseason, pre-spawn, and he's down there right now. He's been fishing, so man, I just want to dive right into this. Michael, how are you doing?
Super good and getting better, catching a lot of big bass.
Man, you're my idol, dude.
Today, it's been awesome. It's been awesome down here. I've been down here for 2 weeks. The weather has been the best I've ever seen. I actually started coming down to Florida back in the 1970s. So I love coming down here this time of year. And what you have a lot of challenging conditions. And the water temperature, believe it or not, after this last cold front got down to about 56. Okay, so that's what a cold front does. A week ago, the water temperature was near 70 down here. And so you really have to work hard to figure these fish out. And I was very fortunate. My first day down here 2 weeks ago, I went out into the middle of Lake Toho and using my my graphs. And I was just looking for some pretty good graphs out there. And lo and behold, boom. I mean, just bang, bang. I caught a couple of fish, and that was out deep. I actually have been concentrating in water 7 to 10 feet deep.
Wow.
There's a real nice hydrilla. There's hydrilla that's growing up about 5 or 6 feet from the bottom, and it's full of really giant bass. I mean, I've caught so many bass down here these last couple of weeks. My arm's actually tired.
Wow. On the Bassin Magazine podcast, we like to talk about confidence. Confidence is what it takes to catch fish. What do you have confidence on for the pre-spawn bass in Florida?
Okay, well, one of my favorite baits, and I'll show it right here. I'm on the Gary Yamamoto team. This time of year, pre-spawn conditions, I like the 6-inch Gary Yamamoto Senko.
See, Brad?
And this, okay, here it is. I'm showing you. See if you can guess the color.
Watermelon red.
No.
Green pumpkin.
No, actually, you're close. It is watermelon. It's the 208. It's the watermelon red with the black fleck.
Black. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've also been using a color 231, which is kind of a June bug, and it looks a little like a plum. But
nice.
But what I do with this, I'll give out my secret. I like to fish this wacky, and I use a Gamakatsu 2 and 3/0 wacky hook.
Okay.
And I hook these things in the middle, and they just eat that thing up right now. And I saw today Tom Mansour. He's also on the Yamamoto team. He posted on Facebook where he caught 2 10-pounders today.
Wow.
Yamamoto Senko.
Wow.
So I know a lot of people go, wow, that's not the kind of bait I want to throw. I want to go out and throw a big rattle trap, or I want to throw a big spinner bait.
Yeah, we got a power fish.
But I'll tell you right now, yesterday, let's go back to Monday morning. I had frost on my boat cover. My boat cover was white. When I got out to the lake Monday morning, it was in the 30s.
Woo.
And most people will tell you, oh no, uh, you're not going to catch any fish today after that cold front. So
BS.
I go out there cold as all get out and start catching them. And they are biting. I mean, this is right after a cold front, man. And these fish are hungry and they're biting. But the technique is you've got to fish this thing slower than slow.
Oh, yeah.
And they like the bigger presentation. You know, a lot of people like to use a 5-inch Senko. I would highly recommend for everybody watching, go out to baits.com and get you some bags of these 6-inch Senkos, especially if you're down here in Florida.
Now, are you skin hooking them or are you hooking them straight through?
Or you have a rubber band, or what are you doing?
I actually will show you what I'm doing. Here's my
wacky rig tool.
Yeah, here's my
wacky tool. Yeah,
wacky tool. I'll show you what I do. Now, this is a 6-inch Senko, so I don't use a bigger ring. I use the same size ring you'd use on a 5-inch Senko. Okay. I just put the ring on there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how I hook them. And one of the neat things about this is when they bite it, you're going to catch them. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're going to catch them. So I'll show you how I'm rigging it. I put the hook right through the top of that ring, just like that.
Okay.
So if you can see that right there, and that is, I've won a lot of money. Let's just say most of the money that I've won in tournaments recently, this is the technique. This is the technique. And actually 2 years ago, in a Major League Fishing Toyota tournament down here, I think I had like a 21st place finish, but I caught every one of my fish on this technique.
I don't doubt that one bit.
Right here. So anyway, okay. I would highly encourage all the listeners, you've got to put this in your arsenal for these pre-spawn fish. But the good news about this technique, it'll work after a cold front when those fish have slowed down. Now, maybe that bite window gets tighter, but that doesn't matter. I guarantee the viewers out there, try this technique, especially after a Florida cold front. You'll catch some nice bass.
So are you using spinning? Oh, go ahead, Brad.
What line and what kind of rod are you using?
I like to use a 6.5-foot Grant All-American spinning rod.
Okay.
I use the heavy action, and I like the Lew's reels. I like the Lew's spinning reels. They hold up on the bigger fish. And I actually use 14-pound Gamma copolymer line, moss green.
Copolymer, okay.
The copolymer works really good for me. So I would highly recommend the Jim Grant All-American rods. Give those a try. You know, most of the people that I guide fall in love with those rods.
Well, what's not to fall in love with?
Loose spinning reels.
Are you full spool or do you have a leader?
I full spool. I do not believe in tying leaders. These fish are too big down here.
Right.
I mean, these fish. I set the hook on a bass when I first got down here. I wrenched my shoulder. I actually couldn't move the fish. It was so big. Wow. And so, no, I would not recommend leaders, but, you know, to each their own. Yeah. Whatever you're confident with.
I've heard that before. People say that leaders are just another knot that can go wrong.
Well, let me tell you why I like the moss green color line. Back in the late 80s, I met Doug Hannon. And
sure,
he actually came to my room in a Bassmaster Megabucks. I had brought in more fish than anybody in the tournament 2 days in a row. And he knocked on my door and he wanted to ask me what I was doing. And Doug Hannon always believed in that green color, that moss color to his line down here. And I believe that too. I believe that makes a difference.
So
when Doug came in there and asked you, "Hey, how are you catching these?" Did you say the helicopter lure?
No, when he knocked on my door, I'll never forget this.
You said, I didn't order a Doug Hannon.
He said, non-attribution, Mike. At the time, Doug Hannon was the live release guru for Bassmaster.
Yeah.
But he said, would you please tell me how you're catching those fish? And I told him I was catching them back then on a jaw tack, blueback wacky crawl. I was pitching it in Lake Dora, and I was catching really big bass. But I'll divulge another secret that I've shared with Doug. You're looking at a lure here. Can you guess what this lure is? And this might even
be a little bit closer.
Is it a cotton cordell?
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of.
It's sugar shad.
Sugar. Who makes that?
Ed Moore.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
make them. Now, I can tell you the story of this lure. Jack Davis, the man's lure designer was real famous back in the day, he designed this lure and he gave the rights to Ed Moore. And Ed started making these in his garage. And I happened to meet Ed, became friends with him. And this bait is one of the most proven bass catching rattling lures there is. Where I live up in Northern Virginia on the Potomac River, people still call me and beg me to give them these lures. They said, Mike, can you spare? And I still have many of the brand new ones that are over 30 years old in the box. Box. So this, I wanted to share this with everybody. The rattling baits are working right now.
Okay.
So now's a good time for anybody coming down to Florida to get your favorite rattling baits. And if you can find some sugar shads, make sure you got some really good line tied on.
So how are those big bass biting right now? Are they smacking, just barely picking it up, or what's?
They're loading your rod up. They're actually loading your rod up. And I can show you another bait right here that I'm not sponsored by this, but this is a white jackhammer chatterbait.
Okay.
And this happens to be a 1/2 ounce. I've been throwing the 3/8 ounce.
I saw you had a big one of those on that. Yeah.
Yeah, these are real good. I've caught some nice fish on it, and through these deep water hydrilla beds, they'll load your rod. I mean, they'll almost pull the rod out of your hand.
So what are you casting those with? I'm
casting those with a Lew's reel. I'm throwing the 7-to-1 speed, and that's a key point for anybody throwing these chatterbaits. The 7-to-1 speed ratio bait caster is really good. But I've got a whole bunch of different models of the Lew's reels. And of course, I always like to use the Grant rods. You can bet whenever possible, I throw those Jim Grant rods. And by the way, Jim Grant's traveling around America right now doing bass shows just all over the place, Illinois and all over. So
Chicagoland fishing show right now.
So you can go meet Jim Grant. He's a world famous rod maker, and he's in the Fishing Hall of Fame. And try some Grant rods. I guarantee you'll love them.
And guys, for wacky rigging, I wouldn't use anything else other than Grant, because I mean, there are a lot of times when they'll just pick it up, and you have to be able to tell is that a bite or what's going on at the end of my line, because you really can't be pulling the thing. You want it to fall naturally, so you got to kind of just keep it just out of that, so that you're not pulling the worm. And with a Grant rod, you can tell the second that fish clamps down on it.
Yeah, the sensitivity of a Grant rod is amazing. But let me tell you the 3 ways these Florida bass are biting right now.
Please do. Please do.
One way is it'll just feel mushy. You know, you'd think you're bogged down in the grass. Okay, the second way they're biting, you'll just feel the most subtle little tick. Okay, and then the third way they're biting, they'll try to pull the rod out of your hand. I actually had a big bass on the other day, and he ran at me. He ran right down the side of the boat. And I was so frustrated when I lost this fish. But the 3 ways that I just described, though, those are really the 3 types of bites that you have to be aware of. And given the changing conditions, you know, now the weather's warming up. It's going to be 80 tomorrow. What I would expect, these bass, their strike window is going to be bigger, and they're going to be much more aggressive. So when I really like the Cinco is when the bass will run to it to get it.
Oh, yeah.
That's really when it's getting fun. But these fish are also making beds all over the place. When you get back in the canals, you can see where the males are working real hard to make the beds. But right now, in Toho, most of these big females are out. I'd say they're in like 5 to 10 feet of water. They're staging. But if this hot weather continues, there's probably going to be some moving up pretty soon into the bulrushes and into the shallower canals.
Hey, I want to go back to the sugar shad real quick. Is that pre-lure Jensen?
Oh, yes, sir, it is. I'll show you another one here. This is a quarter. I showed you the half a while ago, but this baby here, this is a quarter. This is an Edmore lure. These are not lure Jensens. Now, here's my favorite. Here's my favorite. And I'll tell you a little.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is the 1/8 ounce.
Wow.
This is the 1/8 original Edmore Cinco. And I want to tell you a little story. Back in 92, I got paired with Ron Pierce. He was the owner of Bass Cat Boats.
Right.
And he wanted to fish out of his boat. And I caught a 5.5 pounder throwing this little 1/8 ounce blue chrome sugar shad over the top of some hydrilla. And Ron lipped him for me. I mean, the fish was all I could handle. And guess who was right there when Ron lipped that fish?
Who?
The bass photographer, Gerald Crawford, took a picture of Ron Pierce holding that 5.5 pound bass broadside on his brand new white Bass Cat boat.
Wow.
But I'll tell you what, if you can find you some of these 1/8 ounce sugar shads, I'm telling you, hold on, because these babies work in thick grass.
So how can you tell the difference pre-lure Jensen from the Edmore to the lure Jensen? What's the difference on those?
I think the way that they're made, the rattle, and the Edmore, you can drop them in a fish tank, and it'll sit nose down, tail up in the air. And one of the key things about the old sugar shads, you can yo-yo this thing. You can fish it slow. You can fish it like a worm. And that's this bait is much more versatile than a lot of different vibrating baits. And what's unique about it, it's got a bigger lid in the head, and then it's got some smaller BBs in the back. So this thing was designed to catch bass. And remember now, think of all the lures for mans that Jack Davis designed. This original Edmore sugar shad was designed by Jack Davis. And he's probably the most famous lure maker of all time.
Wow.
So do we have any questions? Is there anybody, do you guys actually entertain questions from the audience? Or?
Oh, absolutely.
And
we have one comment. It's from Cajun Rob. He said, "Good evening, fellas. We don't have any questions yet. There's actually 3 people watching us,
okay,
but a lot more people will tune in after we're done. You know, a lot of people like to watch this on the way to or listen to this on the way to their work or their jobs in the morning."
Oh yeah, okay, cool. So, do you guys have any particular questions or want me to go into anything?
I'm just intrigued. I love old lures that catch fish. You know, every listener out there knows, every subscriber knows Wiggle Warts is a great example.
Oh, Wiggle Warts, yeah.
New Wiggle Warts don't work. You know, you can look at a bait and see, oh, this is an old pre-storm or pre-Rapala, storm Wiggle Wart compared to a new one. I was just curious if this sugar shad, if you can look at it compared to a Lure Jensen sugar shad out of the package, you know, what does an old package look like if the readers get on, you know, eBay or something like that to go find some? What are they looking for to shop for, I guess?
Well, I don't believe you can buy them anymore. The originals, there may be a few people across America that have them. I probably have more of the originals right now than most people across America. The packaging of the original sugar shads, it had a white label. It was a clear plastic box, a clear like a rattle trap uses, and it had Edmore lures on it. So
Okay.
So the packaging is quite different. Now, anybody's interested, if anybody would like to talk to me about possibly having me send them a sugar shad or two that's original in the box. But I can tell you this, I actually designed a color for sugar shad called the Potomac shad. And it's a unique looking bait. And I actually, there's been a few people through the years that have asked me to autograph an original, and I give it to them because I've still got, when I was sponsored by Ed Moore, I've still got the jacket.
Look at that.
That's it. That's exactly it. See,
wow.
Did I describe it pretty closely?
Yeah, that's it. That's what I wanted to show people. So
you can't talk about a lure that Brad. It's just not possible.
So the Lure Jensen I went and found. I actually have a couple in the package, but when you said Ed Moore, I knew that there's a pre-Lure Jensen. So that's what I wanted to get out and let the listeners hear and know that there's probably a difference in the way those fish compared to the way the old ones fish.
We do have a question from the audience.
Yes.
Okay, the question is, could you please ask Michael what the any questions? What's the best pattern for Florida for a back boater or co-angler? What would you recommend pre-spawn? Angler.
A wacky Senko, if you co-anglers, if you fish a wacky Senko behind your boater, the probability is high you're going to outfish him. Now, if you don't like a wacky Senko, you can use a Texas rig plastic worm. But I can tell you, I've seen it happen. I'm getting ready to go fish a Major League Toyota tournament over at Lake Harris. I've been on Lake Harris, and I've seen co-anglers dragging slow-moving plastics behind their boater, out fishing their boater right and left.
Wow.
So that would be the ticket. Fish something different. I know that a lot of the co-anglers, they want to see what their boater's throwing. My advice to you, throw something different and throw something that you can move with a good wiggle to it, like a wacky Senko, and you'll catch your share of fish.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for that answer, Mike. So now, how will you work?
I think my favorite though, just sorry to interrupt, but the 8th the 1/8 ounce sugar shed. I don't even know if Lure Jensen makes these. This was my favorite. The 1/8 ounce.
So, what I'm finding on here is that they're not listing them by the ounce. They're listing them as a 2.5 inch, a 3 inch. They're not. I wouldn't know how to tell what ounce it is. I'm trying to zoom in on some old boxes of it to try to see what it says on the box.
Okay, as I recall, I believe it had the weight. The small blue chrome, like I've shown you, is an 1/8 ounce. This is a black chrome 1/4 ounce, and then here's the half.
Okay.
And we didn't do it by size, but these, for all you lure collectors out there, if you can find you some of these original sugar sheds, it's worth holding on to, because I believe one day these things are going to be worth a lot of money, but they catch fish. This one right here, I'm going to be throwing in Lake Harris in my tournament.
Can I ask what your color was again?
What this color here is a gold coach pattern. We called it coach. The black on it, we called a coach pattern. It's got a gold side and it's got a green back.
Is that the color that
got an orange?
Is that the color that you helped design?
No, the one that I helped design is just like this. It's got a coach pattern, but it's silver. It's got a chartreuse back, and it's got a little red on the bottom. The one that we called the Potomac Shad.
Oh, Potomac Shad. That's what okay.
Yeah, I don't believe Lure Jensen sells that color, but
yeah.
But that's really cool that you actually had one of the old sugar sheds still in the original box.
Yeah. I have some Lure Jensen ones too, but I knew that's not what you meant, so I wanted to find.
Oh yeah, these baits that I'm showing you tonight, these are the original, designed by Jack Davis, painted in Ed Moore's garage.
Wow, that's awesome.
Now, what happened when the sugar shed skyrocketed and everybody started to buy them back in the late 80s? I believe there was a time where Ed contracted out to have them made somewhere else. But the best ones that I've ever seen and used were made by Ed Moore in his garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually in his garage. And he lived right there, I believe, in Willaca, Florida, not far from the St. Johns River.
Good place to live.
I'm not finding any colors on the packaging either, but I just want to see if
they went by numbers. That's called a bleeding shiner.
Oh, okay. Okay.
They went by numbers.
That's why. Okay. All right.
Yeah. They were numbered. And I believe the blue chrome was an 01. I believe the black chrome was an 03. So yeah, that they actually were numbered to designate color.
Interesting. Way cool. That's awesome. That's education that I love learning.
but you know, I could tell you a fascinating thing. My father actually went over to Jack Davis not long before he died, and he videoed Jack Davis. So somewhere I've got a video where Jack talked about all the lures he designed and everything. So I thought that was pretty cool for Jack Davis to help out one of the local Florida people by giving him a lure like the sugar shed.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is a great story. That is a great story. I love it.
So what tournaments will you be fishing down there in Florida?
I've actually got two. I've got the Major League Fishing the 1st through the 3rd of February at the Harris Chain of Lakes.
That's the Toyota Series?
Right. I'm going to be heading over there the 25th of January to start the practice. And then the second Major League Toyota tournament is at Lake Okeechobee the end of March. And then the third Toyota Southern is going to be at Lake Eufaula the first week in May. So, through my career, I fished a lot of Bassmaster. In fact, in 2002, I qualified for what was then the Bass Tour, but what's now the Bass Elites.
Okay.
I was still working for the Navy. I couldn't fish them all that year. That in 2003, they had 10 tournaments. 2 of them were in California.
Oh, yeah.
And I also qualified for the FLW, what used to be the FLW Tour, several times. And I fished that in 15 and 16. But right now, I'm at the stage of my career where I really enjoy guiding. I do a lot of guiding on the Potomac River. I still keep my finger in the professional tournaments. Last year, I fished some of the Bass Opens. And so this year, I'm going to do more Major League Fishing Toyotas. And I especially have my eye on that one on the Potomac River. But that's not until next September. So yeah, you guys have a really cool video podcast here. I really like the way you're doing this now. It's much better than having just the soundtrack. Being able to see people and talk about.
Thank you. We're working on it. It's a work in progress. We've been doing it a year now.
That's cool. Cool, and I put
sure
the
is a
word
work in progress.
I've got
and
a page that I set the word out that we were doing this broadcast tonight. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this when it becomes a video.
Great.
Well, people have been coming in and out the entire 30 minutes we've been here, so
yeah,
that's a good thing. Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Well,
Do you have any other? Go.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Here's another question. It says, what's your best David Dudley story?
Oh, I got a good one for you. Did David Dudley ask that question?
No.
David Dudley and I are very close friends. I met him. I met David. I knew his father, but I met David when he first came out to fish the Bassmaster. Okay, let me tell you a little story. His boat was so rickety, they wouldn't let him use it in the tournaments. And he had a beat-up pickup truck. But, guess what? Back then, they only had the 6 invitationals now. This is before the top 100. He was Angler of the Year, and they wouldn't even let him use his boat. But the greatest story I've got on him, he used to stay at my house some. He would come up to Northern Virginia, and he would fish some of the I guess the Walmart tournaments. Back then, I think they called them the Bass Fisherman League. What used to be the old Red Man.
Old Red Man.
Yeah, the Red Man.
He was having battery problems. He sent my wife out to buy him some batteries for his boat. So that I thought that, and my wife went out and got them for him.
Wow.
But I can tell you this. I've stood in the boat with Dave Dudley many a time. He's the most gifted, talented bass fisherman that I've ever been in a boat with. And I've been in a boat with a lot of them. Jay Yalis, Guido Hibden, Guy Aker, Jimmy Houston. We could go on and on and on. But yeah, Dave is special, and he's intuitive. He does things out there without even thinking that result in catching more bass. I mean, totally changing up what he's doing, location, technique. But he is the most intuitive bass angler that I've ever seen. So I encourage all the viewers out there, watch his videos. You can learn a lot from him, but he never gives up. he's a tough kid, and I actually attended his wedding, and I'll tell you another story. I thought there would be a lot of bass fishermen when Dave got married, and I was really taken back. I was one of the only bass fishermen he invited to his wedding when he got married. That's how close we were at that point in time. We're still close. You know, we're Virginia mountain boys. We love to trout fish. And I'll tell the viewers something else. Trout fishing can make you a better bass angler. If you learn how to trout fish and wade those mountain streams, that'll teach you a lot about catching bass. Anyway, though, Dave's still one of my closest friends, and thank you for bringing that up.
That was Cajun Rob Welsh.
Yeah, thank you.
Southern Kentucky. He's a huge fan of the show.
So, any more questions, or?
Do you have any other questions, Brad?
No, I'm intrigued in this sugar shad and research. I gotta find some now.
Well, I tell you what, if we ever do this again,
we will.
We can do it from my office, and I can show you some of the original boxes and all kinds of things. And so I look forward to doing this again, and also, I've got a YouTube video channel, Mike Hall Fishing Pro. I've got a lot of fun, and I encourage the viewers to go out and take a look at some of those. I love to teach people how to fish. I mean, there's nothing more than doing that.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. It was great.
Well, Mike, do you have any shout outs you'd like to do real quick?
Yeah, I'd like to do a shout out. Today's my sister's birthday, and her name is Donna, and I want to wish her a happy birthday.
Well, happy birthday, Donna.
I'd like
happy birthday, Donna.
I'd like to wish my wife, Teresa's birthday was 14 January, and she was nice enough to let me come to Florida here and fish. And so a lot of birthdays. And then my oldest grandson, Michael III, turns 11 tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
So I love my family. I love the fishing community. So I'm just so thrilled, Jay, that you all allowed me the privilege to be on your show tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. All right, keep throwing that sugar shad now. Are we done?
Mike, thank you so much for coming. Thank every one of our viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Bassin Magazine podcast. Bassin Magazine, guys. Bassin Magazine is the official magazine of the Weekend Angler. For more information about Bassin Magazine, aren't you subscribed? You can see right by Brad's name, www.bassinonline.com. And please, you watch this on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. Please like and share that for me. And thank you again, Mike, for coming on with that. I'm going to say it's Wednesday evening, guys. Make your plans to go fishing this weekend because you only get to do this once.
Amen. All right. Go catch a big one.
Thank you.